April 12th. Oh.
Board meeting.
Everybody
Take a deep breath, take a deep breath.
We're good. I call to order the Highland Park Board of Education Hybrid Special Voting Workshop Meeting today, April 10th, 2025. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Courier News and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. May I have roll call, please?
Dr. Beatty,
Here.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Here.
Dr. Coleman. Here. Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Prus,
Here.
Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Stanio,
Here.
Ms. Bardman, Ms. Voorhees.
We'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the authorization of submission of the tax levy incentive aid plan. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Suska and Mr. Rosa.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I specifically would like to thank all the board members for coming out tonight for this very special board meeting. I know it's challenging to arrange your schedules and pick a date for a quorum. So I know, speaking of myself and Mr. Rosa, we're very thankful and grateful. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to talk about the tax levy incentive aid package. So just to give you all a framework and a context, I'm going to toss our conversation back to the preliminary budget conversation. During that board meeting, we had stated that we were originally slated to lose 10% of our state funding, which approximately was $1.1 million. The New Jersey Department of Education pushed out an update that no school districts could lose less than 3% or gain more than 6% of their budget. So we happen to be on the losing end of that 3%, and we lost $184,000. So although we lost, it could have been worse. And at that evening, we had presented a balanced budget. What happens between the balanced, the preliminary budget and a final budget is we review all of the expenditures, our projected revenue, anything that changes within those couple of weeks to present the balanced budget. So unfortunately, some things did happen to come up in between the preliminary budget and what will be the final budget that we want to present, in particular addressing some significant student needs and placement that are coming at an extraordinarily high expense. So because of those unforeseen expenses, we have to cut some more items from the budget. So what New Jersey Department of Education is doing is they're incentivizing school districts that are below adequacy, which Highland Park is, to apply for this tax levy incentive aid package. So March 28th, Mr. Rosa and I received an email from the Department of Education giving this information saying you qualify to apply for this. The application is due April 14th on Monday. And in order to submit the application, you need a board resolution, hence the board meeting tonight. So the application, which is attached in the board agenda, has a lot of information. So upon discussion with the Board of Education and our community leaders, we had collectively decided that we wanted to apply for this. We apply for it, the hopes that essentially the Department of Education can do one of three things. They can either pass our application fully and approve it with everything listed. They could not pass it at all and not approve any of the items on there, or they could cherry pick and say, we will approve you to go over the tax levy of 2%, and here are the items that we support for that. And we won't know until they come back with with that information. So what we did was we tried to put together the strongest application possible with the strongest arguments to go above our 2% tax levy. They do cap you at a certain percent, and that is that below adequacy number is the cap for raising the taxes. So what it means currently would be if our application was approved for those items on there, we'd be able to reinstate them back in the budget and present that as a final budget to the board and the community. What it also means is that, and I'll let Mr. Rosa kind of pick up on this in a few minutes, but what it also means is that it allows us to start at a higher financial position next year when we do our 2% tax levy. And we think that's going to be really critical, especially in light of we will have changeover at the New Jersey legislation level with a gubernatorial election coming up. We're not really sure how they're going to change the S2 funding formula or how they're going to fund public schools moving forward. So this actually puts us up in a position, hopefully, of better success next year by doing so. So it really is an important, critical decision for the present and for the future. So what we are requesting, if you look through the packet, you'll see a couple of items. So what we are requesting is to reinstate the Envisions math resource and program. So we had that originally slated in the budget, but we cut it because it was just over $70,000. And you'll see there's two line items for that, one for the actual resource itself and one for the sustained professional development around the resource. And that is to help our primary school students and giving them a resource to help close that math achievement gap. In addition, you'll see two RUBHC, Rutgers Behavioral Healthcare clinicians, and that is to support the Tier 3 therapeutic support for students that are having struggles with emotional regulation impairment. So we had to cut the high school clinician, unfortunately, to create a balanced budget. And then we weren't also able to add an additional clinician at Irving, where we're seeing some really significant behavioral problems. Unfortunately, we had to cut 3 positions. So you'll see on there the part-time media center specialist at Irving Primary School, the full-time media center specialist at Bartle Elementary School, and the high school computer science teacher at the high school. These are unfortunate and very hard decisions to do. I will say that these 3 positions were selected because we are able to have alternatives to be able to support those. So although we would have to cut the position at the high school for computer science, we will still be able to run some computer science courses. And with the media center specialists, it's very important that our students are exposed to the media literacy standards as well as access to books. We'll be able to cover both of those things. It's not ideal, and we'd love to have those positions back to be able to provide more for our students. But that is why those 3 positions were selected, because we're able to probably figure out another way to cover those in other ways. In addition, we are requesting some money for some facility projects. So either these were taken out of the preliminary budget, or they are now issues that came up over the past couple of weeks. So one is a heat pump at Irving. So our heat pump is very, very old. It's on its very last leg. If it goes, that's going to be a significant problem. So we're trying to get out in front of it so that we remain with heat and hot water at Irving. That was cut from the original budget. During the time, actually just about a week ago, we found out that our fire alarm panel is out of date. And the fire marshal and inspectors highly recommend, before that becomes a problem, that we replace that, and that's a safety concern. In addition, we had some bleacher issues. Some of our bleachers need repair. Recently, we had a student at the high school fall through the bleachers because what happens is they get pulled out, but they pull out on an angle because the remote part of it isn't working, and it got jammed and stuck, and unfortunately, a kid got hurt, not severe, but a kid was injured falling through that. So right now, if you go into the high school, there's big caution tape over it. We can't use it at all because there's safety concerns. And lastly, what came to our attention recently during a power outage is that the door hardware system at Irving and Bartle isn't like it is at the middle and high school, and it's not on a universal system. So students can easily hit a button or not even on some of our doors, and they just leave. So where at the middle and high school, you either have to hit like the green button to exit, which is, sometimes at Irving a little too high for some of our littles. And also they have an alarm system. So at Bartle and Irving, at middle and high school, if you've been here during the day and you try to leave, and you don't hit the button or you leave through one of the doors that doesn't have the button, it sounds the alarm and it triggers it so that we know if someone is eloping or something's happening, where that's coming from, and we can send somebody to that door to investigate what's happening. At Bartle and Irving, we don't have that. And so our students are eloping and it's becoming a safety concern. So that was brought to our attention in light of the recent issues that happened with the power outages that we had. So that summarizes our request to go above the tax levy. I, again, know these decisions aren't easy, and myself as a taxpayer in New Jersey, I know it kind of hurts the bottom line, and it's definitely not the best financial situation for anybody. But if you look at, and again, I'll toss the mic over to Mr. Rosa in a second, and she can speak about the incentive that the New Jersey Department of Education is doing, where they're saying, we'll incentivize you and actually throw you a little bit of the money if you do this to help fund, help with the taxpayers fund public schools, and specifically in Highland Park. Mr. Rosa?
Yes, so as Dr. Sluska mentioned, the state is incentivizing districts that choose to go above the tax levy. So our below adequacy number is roughly $1.3 million. We put together this application for $1,055,000 to address the critical needs now, to provide a thorough and efficient education for our students. Of that amount, the state, if approved, would contribute $50,238. So the impact to the tax levy would be $1,004,762. When we presented the preliminary budget, it was a total increase of 2.88%, which was an annual increase to the average homeowner of $260.51. With this incentive application and approval, if it is approved for the full amount, the total increase in the school tax levy would be 6.06%. The annual change for the average homeowner would be $486, which is about $225 more than the preliminary budget. So the application is due on Monday, the 14th. We plan to submit it tomorrow once the resolution is approved. And the state is working to get the information, the approvals, the denials prior to the final public budget hearing, which has to be done by May 7th, and our meeting is May 5th. So we hope to hear by then, either way. If we don't hear from them, we'll have to proceed with a final budget that addresses the current needs that we have as much as we can, and make some adjustments that we would have to present on May 5th.
So if you saw those who read my email on Friday, and I encourage you to continue to do so, that is why we moved the meeting back from April 28th to May 5th, to give us a week buffer, in hopes that we do hear back from them one way or the other, so that it allows us time to adjust the final budget and final budget presentation accordingly. Like Mr. Rosa said, if for some reason they don't get back to us in time because of the deadline that we have to submit the final budget to the county and to the state, it may require us to make adjustments. After that, we may have to reopen the budget and do a new budget hearing and pass a new budget. But we're hopeful that the information will come through. We are remaining hopeful that the information will come through timely and in our favor to support the students in Highland Park. And that is it. We'll open it up to questions.
Can Denise, I assume, but whoever explained the term below adequacy, I think it's helpful to explain it. It has nothing to do with our schools. It's a financial term, but
Yes.
just explain that for everybody.
So when we presented the preliminary budget, we went over how the state calculates state aid. This year, they chose to use an average of the community wealth and also the valuation of property. And that raised our equalization aid, and therefore we became below adequacy, which is the first time that I found this community has been below adequacy. And any records that I have found that were left to me, I could not find any time where we were below adequacy before. And I think that they did that across many districts across the state of New Jersey. And with that budget package, they included, they set aside amount for this incentive aid application to allow those districts that choose to apply to increase above the 2%.
So, but what they were, to piggyback on that and to reiterate, what they were saying was that the Highland Park, because of the information that came in through that new weighted way they were doing the S2 formula, is that Highland Park is, they say, wealthy enough that we can support, the taxpayers can support the difference of what is owed to us to fully fund our schools. I know that's quite a, really hard thing to grapple with and think about, given the state of the fact that we have significant number of students on free and reduced lunch, and looking across our community. But, due to some of the other things that are outside of our control happening within our community, that was, and other communities, that's sort of what landed us there. The other piece of it too is every October 15th, the New Jersey Department of Education requires us to do a snapshot of our attendance, of our enrollment. And at that point, our enrollment was down. What they don't do is take any other snapshots until they collect the data at the end of the year, and then they do another snapshot in October. And so since then, actually, once January hit and we ran our numbers, our enrollment went back up, but they don't count for that. So technically, the wealth went up enough to support the difference, and our enrollment went down. So that was the combination that led us to this point.
So just a comment, because I think, it's obviously, we don't want to sacrifice our safety and the programming like that, I think is number one priority. The one thing on my mind that I just to put out there is, while we're below adequacy, it's almost like we all don't believe that to be true. So I worry a little about, I think we've got to do this, but I worry a little about once we kind of, it's almost like a recognition that that value is the right amount for us from a tax levy perspective, but we challenge that a little bit. Like we don't, so I don't know. It's just a statement that I think I hope it can be evaluated. And I just worry that this is an acknowledgement that this is where it should be, rather than a different kind of engagement on that number, if that makes sense.
My comment back to that is, if you are 18 or over, rock the vote in November and do your homework, to do your research. If funding public schools is something that is very important to you, and I would say yes, that please do your research onto, into the candidates that are running, to see how they're going to fund public education and make a decision in the best interest of the students in Highland Park.
So I just had a question just to clarify. Is this assessment something that is done yearly, so it can change to where we might not be? What is it, under adequacy or
Below
inadequacy?
Yes. So every October 15th, it's that snapshot, as Dr. Seska explained. And then in early March, we get our state aid notice. So that's when they do the calculation. This year, the state decided to change the way they formulated state aid. And as Dr. Seska mentioned, we don't know if they're going to continue with this formula or change it yet again. But I'm very thankful they instituted a cap this year. I don't know what we would have done if we lost the 1.1 million. There's just uncertainty about the future and how schools will be funded. I think we provide an adequate education, an above adequate education here. The concern is mainly facilities that are weighing the budget down, and capping a school school budget at 2% when all the other items are increasing. Our utilities are increasing 20%. Our insurance, health insurance is increasing 14%. Property casualty insurance, 17%. So it just, in the end, doesn't add up
Mhm.
to 2%, unfortunately.
And so this levy is a yearly thing. So like we would have to do this all again next
This was
year.
just for this year. The state.
Okay, so the levy
instituted-
doesn't, the tax levy doesn't stay the same every year, or does it stay the same every year
Well,
until?
this application to increase the tax levy above the 2.88% is just for this year. But that amount, if we are approved, will be added to the base, and our tax levy will then be the 33 million instead of 32 million. And then the 2% cap would be on the 33 million, not the 32 million, if we are approved. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So, I mean, clearly nobody wants to do this. This is not something that I think anyone here feels good about in any way whatsoever. But I think to piggyback off of what Denise was saying, the thing that's extraordinarily important to remember is that not only, did we lose state funding last year and then lost state funding again this year, but our expenses have increased. And I'm so grateful for the work that Dr. Suska and Mr. Rosa have done in order to get us into a budget where we can live within our means, given that the means are shrinking. However, the expenses are going up no matter what we do. We can't control how much the fact that utility rates are going up 30% or that insurance rates are going up. Everything is getting more expensive for everyone. And I feel absolutely awful that we are going to contribute to that, to the community in Highland Park. However, we're doing everything that we can. And we need to make sure that our kids have safe facilities and that we're able to, these jobs are important to be able to have a computer science teacher in the high school and the middle school and have media specialists in the elementary schools. That's extraordinarily important. And I think something that this community values.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback off that, one of the things when we first discussed this is, there's more uncertainty down the line. And so, we've got to do this, I think, to also just protect ourselves down the line to make sure that we can have safe spaces and the right instructional supports. So.
And just to remind everybody, when we did our preliminary budget, and we'll do it again with the final budget, is those 3 buckets, how we budget. So the first one are any of our legal mandates that come. The second is any New Jersey Department of Education mandates. For example, there's a certain amount of phys ed minutes that students have to get, language arts, math, science, the high school requirements for graduation. So all of those are DOE requirements. The third bucket are the things that we value and want here in Highland Park. And oftentimes that is the area that we start having to chip away, unfortunately, when our expenses are going up, but the revenue isn't. So that's where we find ourselves with decisions that are very hard, that come with, having to cut positions or not being able to support our students in areas that we know they need the support because we have the requirements. So it wasn't an easy decision for the board. I know every time we threw something at them, it was, nope, we don't want to cut that. Nope, 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 nope. And we hear them, and we didn't want to either. But what we did was made a list of all those things that are above and beyond the state minimum or the state requirement. And that's when you have to start chipping away. And that's when we have to value what of it. Is it our mental health support? Is it the SEL? Is it the closing the achievement gap in our interventionists? Is it these media center specialists? And there's no easy answer because we want it all, because they're all so vital and important to the whole child. And so that's, just a reminder of that's where these decisions come from.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Suska and Mr. Rosa, for putting together this application. This was a big undertaking in a very small amount of time. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of back and forth, a lot of planning, a lot of, digging into the financials. And so we really appreciate all of the efforts that you guys put in to help get this application together. We will have time for public comment in a few minutes. So, and obviously if you need to process this information and email us afterwards, please do so as well. But, we're here to listen to your concerns and to your questions. I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn to introduce some other finance items that we're pushing forward tonight. And these are the regular things that we usually do. Just because we had to postpone our meeting to May, we do need to pay bills this month. So we are going to authorize some bill payments.
So also on the agenda tonight, which is all just finance, is the approval of the additional bills list. We're recommending that our school board administrator continue to pay our bills that come in between now and May 5th, when we meet again and we can approve them more individually. Approval of our treasurer's report that takes us through February 28th, 2025. The board secretary's report, which as we do every month, so we're doing it now because we're not meeting later in April. Again, certifying that no budgetary line item has been overextended. And then the same thing on the Board of Education certifications, that we have sufficient funds to meet the district's financial obligations for the remainder of the year. We have number 10 on the agenda is the approval of budget transfers. Also, again, till going through the end of February.
And are there any, sorry,
Yeah, that's it.
any questions on those items?
Those are the easy ones.
Yes, those are the, well, easier.
Easier.
All right, so we're going to move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments on items from this agenda only. Board policy number 0167 establishes and regulates the right of the public to participate in public meetings. And we did want to limit public comment to this agenda because this was a special meeting for this purpose. If there are comments regarding anything else that's going on, please feel free to email us, or you can join us for public comment on May 5th. Angela, how many people are online? 4? Okay. Is there anybody online for public comment? Okay. Go ahead. It was Rose. Rose, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Rose DiLorenzo, 440 Cedar Ave. I just have a question. I don't really understand the tax levy thing. I still have to kind of catch up with it. May have some follow-up emails, but listening to the most recent mayor and council meeting on April 1st, I believe they said that the average homeowner increase in taxes, if you owned a single family home, was going to be about $500 and stuff. Did that already incorporate all of this? Or if this gets approved, it would go up even more, like, another, say, $250 or what? I don't even know if you can answer that question, but that's what my general question is.
So I actually, this is Denise Rosa. I actually communicate with Terry Jover from Borough Hall. And I give her our school district tax levy information. So she included that in her presentation and in her analysis.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think that's great to note for
But it's
those
the
that.
Yeah, it's the preliminary number. the
Yes,
original
yes.
Number that, so it does not include, I did provide that to her just yesterday. The new number with the application, the additional $1 million included. I provided that to her yesterday. So probably at her next presentation, she may choose to include it depending on if we hear back from the state. So that original April 1st meeting just included the 2.88%.
Right.
increase.
Right. Okay. So that's what I thought it was. And thank you for your clarification regarding that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else online for public comment? Okay. And with no hands raised, we are going to close public comment. So we'll now move to those board action items. I guess, do you want to move them now?
Sure. I'll move number, do I do them all in one?
5 through 10?
Okay, all right. I move items 5 through 10.
Second,
Dr. Beatty,
yes.
Ms. Cassel Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pixley,
Yes.
Ms. Prus,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman,
Yes.
Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Gardman.
Yes.
Is Ms. Voorhees online?
Okay. With that, we are going to move to adjourn. If you are attending online tonight, please, we will be, sending out the link for the YouTube stream. Please advise community members to watch this meeting. We much prefer that they get information from us, than through, other means, that may be misinterpreted or inaccurate. So please advise your community members to watch this. Please reach out with questions, concerns, anything that you would like addressed, please email the board and we will, make sure that those questions, if we can answer them, we will answer them.
And in addition, the board bulletin will go out. We'll try to get it out tomorrow. We'll do our best to, and I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem getting it out tomorrow. So please, it'll go out on Facebook, on the news feed, and in an email. So please, I'm not really sure what you do on Facebook, but reshare, re-X, retweet, whatever I don't know what the words are. I'm not on there. So please repost whatever it is and share it with all that know. So the more you know, the more empowered you are to make informed decisions.
And I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.